If you ever hear your own voice coming from another room, don't look. Just let that sink in for a second, right? It's an incredibly chilling thought. And it's actually the exact opening line of a fascinating piece of short fiction we're unpacking today. Welcome back, everyone. Today we've got a really exciting explainer for you. We're looking at the anatomy of tension by deconstructing a 75-second psychological horror script called The Echo in the Hallway. We're going to break down exactly why this brief narrative grips audiences so effectively. Whether you're a writer, a creator, or just someone who loves understanding the mechanics of a really good scare, we'll see exactly how the precise structural and psychological tools used in this source material keep viewers completely frozen in suspense.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. Anatomy of the hook, setting the scene for terror.
So in the very first 20 seconds of this script, the atmosphere isn't just, background noise. It is a calculated mechanism to trap you right alongside the protagonist. The script establishes what we call the 3 a.m. setup, using 3 specific environmental variables that work perfectly together. First, we've got complete isolation. The protagonist explicitly says they're home alone in their apartment. Second, sensory deprivation. The text literally describes the place as dead silent. And third, atmospheric pressure, with heavy rain beating against the window. So why does this matter? Well, because these 3 variables instantly strip away your safety nets. By muting the outside world and trapping us in this rainy, silent, isolated box, the script primes our brains to hyper-focus on whatever tiny detail comes next. It lays the absolute perfect foundation for a scare.
Moving right along to Section 2, Dread of the Mimic, the auditory horror.
This is where the script pivots from environmental tension to active auditory horror. Our protagonist hears a faint whisper from the dark hallway that quickly escalates into a panicked cry. "Help me. Please, someone help me." And this brilliantly illustrates one of the absolute most unsettling concepts in fiction, the doppelganger or mimic trope. Basically, this is a psychological horror device where a supernatural entity perfectly replicates a victim's voice, pitch, and tone. In the script, the protagonist's blood runs cold because the voice in the hallway didn't just sound like a stranger. It sounded exactly like them. It was their exact pitch and tone. This creates deeply visceral dread because, well, it violates our core sense of self. We instinctively trust our own voice, right? So hearing it separated from our own body creates massive cognitive dissonance. And here is where we see a brilliant subversion of our expectations. Look, when an audience hears someone in the house at 3 a.m., the immediate expectation, especially for a U.S. horror audience raised on true crime thrillers, is a random stranger breaking in, a direct physical threat. But the reality presented here, it's the mimic. You hear your exact own voice. Suddenly you can't just call 911. I mean, what are you going to say? I'm out in the hallway? It instantly shifts the danger from a predictable physical threat to a totally unpredictable psychological and supernatural one. It renders the protagonist utterly powerless, multiplying the tension tenfold. That brings us to Section 3, the cracked door visual, engineering viewer retention. So the auditory trap is set. The protagonist creeps out of bed, heart absolutely slamming against their ribs, to hide behind the bedroom doorframe. I really want to highlight this specific quote from the source. "My fingers gripped the peeling wood so hard they bled." That is just a deeply tactile sentence. The tension isn't just floating out in the hallway. It's physicalized in the protagonist's body. By focusing on this visceral, physical reaction, the bleeding fingers, the peeling wood, the script amplifies the tension significantly before the monster is even visible to the reader. It grounds all that supernatural dread in a very real, painful physical sensation. Now, the absolutely crucial point here is how this physical action dictates what we actually see. Looking through a cracked door deliberately restricts the audience's field of view. By peeking through that narrow crack into the pitch-black hallway, the script maximizes viewer retention via restricted vision. By not showing the whole hallway, it literally forces your imagination to work overtime to fill in those dark spots. Plus, it creates an intense feeling of claustrophobia. If you're watching this play out, this visual limitation is engineered specifically to stop you from clicking away. Your brain naturally wants to resolve the incomplete picture, so you are entirely locked into the narrative, just waiting to see what emerges from the dark. All right, moving into Section 4, delivering the climax, the anatomy of a scare. We've hit the 50-second mark of our script. The setup is complete, the tension has peaked through that visual restriction we just talked about, and now we get the deliberate pacing of the monster's reveal. Let's walk through the physical transformation exactly as the script layers it, piece by piece. First, in the middle of the hallway, a dark, shadowy figure emerges with no face. It starts vague. Second, we get a hyper-specific detail. two glowing, hollow eyes staring straight ahead. And then, the third step escalates the horror into the uncanny. Suddenly, its jaw drops open, stretching unnaturally down to its chest. Do you see how this slows down the horror? The script doesn't just throw a monster at you all at once. Nope, it forces you to watch this grotesque escalation step by step, building a deeply uncomfortable anticipation. And then, from that unnaturally stretched, empty black void of a mouth, the entity speaks. But it doesn't roar, it doesn't hiss, it uses the protagonist's own voice again to say, "Don't look, I see you." Having the entity speak these specific words, actually acknowledging that the protagonist is hiding and looking through the crack, delivers the ultimate psychological payload. It confirms that the restriction of the door didn't protect them at all. The monster was in control the entire time. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, the final payoff, lingering psychological impact. So the protagonist chokes back a scream, slams their eyes shut, and just hides in the corner until morning. When the sun finally comes up, the hallway is empty. The immediate threat seems gone, but then we get this detail. Carved into the inside of the bedroom door are the words, "Next time, open the door." Look at how brilliant this physical evidence is. It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that the supernatural threat wasn't just a bad dream. And worse, it proves the entity actually breached the safe space. I mean, it had to be inside the bedroom to carve those words on the inside of the door while the protagonist was hiding with their eyes shut. It sets up just a terrifying final cliffhanger. Which leaves us with this final question to consider today. How does leaving the threat unresolved while demanding future action from the victim, "Next time, open the door," amplify the lasting psychological impact on the viewer? By not giving us a neat, safe resolution, the script ensures the tension actually follows the audience out of the story. It makes you realize that true horror tension isn't just about the jump scare. It's about the dread that lingers in your own quiet hallways long after the narrative ends. I really hope you enjoyed this breakdown of how structured storytelling can so perfectly manipulate our fears. Keep looking for those hidden details, keep analyzing what you read, and I'll catch you on our next explainer.